I am Amelia Rodriguez, 29 years old, and I want to share a story that changed everything I thought I knew about family, forgiveness, and finding your own worth. 3 years ago, on what should have been the happiest day of my life, my older sister Victoria whispered 5 words in my ear that shattered my heart: "You don't deserve happiness." Last week, that same sister sat in my office conference room, tears streaming down her face, begging me for a job at the marketing agency I built from nothing. Before I tell you how we got here, I need to know something. What time are you listening to this, and where in the world are you right now? I love knowing how far these stories travel, connecting women who might be facing their own family battles. Your support means everything to me. Let me take you back to the beginning, to understand how deep this wound really goes. Growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, I was the middle child in the Rodriguez family. My parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, owned a small restaurant called Corazone's Kitchen. Victoria was 3 years older than me, and our youngest sister, Isabella, was 5 years younger. From the outside, we looked like the perfect Hispanic family. But inside our house, there was an invisible hierarchy that shaped every moment of our lives. Victoria was the golden child. At 16, she was head cheerleader, prom queen, and dated the star quarterback. She had this effortless confidence that drew people to her like a magnet. Her long black hair always fell perfectly, her makeup was flawless, and she commanded attention wherever she went. My parents hung her achievements on the refrigerator like trophies, beaming when neighbors asked about her latest accomplishment. Then there was me. I spent my teenage years hunched over books, building websites for local businesses to earn spending money, and dreaming of college. I wasn't the pretty one, the popular one, or the one who made my parents' eyes light up when they talked about their daughters. I was just Amelia, the quiet one who got good grades and didn't cause trouble. In my family's eyes, being smart wasn't nearly as valuable as being beautiful and socially successful. The divide became clearer as we got older. When Victoria wanted to go to cosmetology school after high school, my parents immediately offered to pay the tuition. "Victoria has such natural talent with beauty," my mother would say, watching her do Isabella's hair. "She'll make women feel beautiful. That's a gift." When I got accepted to Arizona State University with a partial scholarship for my 3.8 GPA, the conversation about money suddenly became complicated. "Mija, we don't have extra money for college right now," my father said, not meeting my eyes across the dinner table. "The restaurant is struggling, and Victoria's school." He trailed off, but the message was clear. Victoria's dreams were investments. Mine were expenses. I worked 3 jobs through college, tutoring fellow students in marketing and business classes, managing social media for small businesses, and serving weekend shifts at a competitor's restaurant. My parents never asked how I was managing financially. They were too busy celebrating Victoria's graduation from beauty school and a salon job she'd landed at an upscale spa in Scottsdale. The pattern continued after college. When I landed my first marketing coordinator job at a digital agency, making more money than Victoria at the salon, my parents' reaction was lukewarm. "That's nice, Mija," my mother said, already turning back to help Victoria plan her housewarming party for the apartment my parents had co-signed for. When Victoria struggled to make rent 3 months later, they covered it without question. When I asked for a small loan to buy professional clothes for my new job, the answer was that they were stretched too thin right now. But the real breaking point came when I met David Chen, my now husband, at a marketing conference in Tucson. David was a software developer, kind and brilliant, with this quiet confidence that drew me in immediately. We bonded over late-night conversations about building something meaningful together, maybe starting our own company someday. He saw my potential in ways my family never had. When I brought David home for the first time, Victoria's reaction was swift and cutting. She cornered me in the kitchen while he was outside with my father, looking at the restaurant's aging point-of-sale system. "Really, Amelia?" she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "He seems nice. But don't you think you're settling? I mean, he's not exactly the type of guy who's going to elevate your social status." She examined her perfectly manicured nails as she spoke, not even bothering to look at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, though my stomach was already tightening with familiar dread. "I'm just saying, you could probably do better if you tried harder with your appearance. Lost some weight, learned to do your makeup properly. I could help you, you know. Give you some tips." Her smile was sweet, but her eyes were cold. That night, I lay in bed replaying her words, feeling that old familiar shame creep up my chest. David had spent the evening genuinely connecting with my family, asking thoughtful questions about the restaurant business and offering to help modernize their systems for free. My parents liked him. Isabella thought he was sweet. But Victoria's approval was the one that somehow still mattered most, and she'd made it clear that I was lucky he was interested in me at all. David and I got engaged 2 years later. I was 27, successful in my career, and happier than I'd ever been. I'd been promoted to senior marketing manager and was developing a reputation in Phoenix's growing tech scene for helping startups build their brand presence. David and I had started talking seriously about launching our own digital marketing agency. Life was finally aligning with my dreams. The engagement party my parents threw was modest but beautiful, held in the private dining room at Corzone's kitchen. Victoria showed up late, making a grand entrance in a red dress that hugged every curve. She'd been dating a series of men since beauty school, each relationship burning bright and fast before fizzling out. Currently, she was between boyfriends and not particularly happy about my engagement stealing her spotlight. Wedding planning became a minefield. Victoria volunteered to be my maid of honor, and I said yes because that's what sisters do, right? But every decision became a battle. She hated my dress choice. "Are you sure that's the most flattering silhouette for your figure?" Criticized the venue. "The botanical garden is pretty, but it's not very impressive," and questioned every detail from the flowers to the music. The worst part was how she managed to make everything about her. During dress shopping, she tried on bridesmaid dresses in the mirror next to me, posing and pouting while I stood in my wedding gown. "I think this color washes me out," she'd say, completely ignoring the fact that I was trying to have a moment with our mother and Isabella. "Maybe we should consider something that's more flattering for everyone." 2 weeks before the wedding, David and I had the official launch meeting for our digital marketing agency, Elevate Creative. We'd been planning it for months, carefully saving money and building a client base. David would handle the technical development side while I focused on strategy and client relationships. It was everything I'd dreamed of, building something that was completely ours. The morning of my wedding, I woke up in my childhood bedroom feeling like I was about to step into the life I'd always dreamed of. Isabella and my cousin Rosa were there to help me get ready, and Victoria arrived an hour late with her hair and makeup already perfect. "Sorry I'm late," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I had to get my roots touched up. You understand how important it is to look good in photos." She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint lipstick mark that Isabella quickly wiped away. Getting ready should have been magical. Instead, it was a series of small cuts disguised as sisterly concern. "Are you sure you don't want me to do your makeup? I mean, the makeup artist did a nice job, but I could make your eyes look bigger. That hairstyle is sweet, but maybe we should add more volume on top to balance your face shape. The dress looks beautiful on you. Very classic." Each comment chipped away at my confidence until I found myself staring in the mirror, second-guessing everything. Isabella, bless her heart, tried to counter Victoria's negativity. Amelia, you look like a princess, she kept saying. David's going to cry when he sees you. The ceremony itself was perfect. The desert botanical garden was gorgeous in the late afternoon light, with the desert landscape creating a stunning backdrop. David did cry when I walked down the aisle, and seeing his face made all of Victoria's comments fade away. This was real. This love was real. Nothing else mattered. But Victoria wasn't done. During the reception, as I was making the rounds talking to guests, Victoria appeared at my elbow. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked, her smile bright for anyone watching. She linked her arm through mine and walked me toward a quieter corner of the venue. "I just wanted to say something to you," she said, still smiling as if we were sharing a sweet sisterly moment. "Something I think you need to hear." "What is it?" I asked, my heart already starting to race with familiar anxiety. She leaned close to my ear, her voice dropping to a whisper that was meant for me alone. "You don't deserve happiness." The words hit me like a physical blow. I pulled back to look at her face, sure I'd misheard. But her eyes were cold and serious, even as she maintained that perfect smile. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me," she whispered again, this time with a small, cruel smile. "You've always thought you were so much better than everyone else with your college degree and your little business plans. But deep down, you know the truth. You don't deserve any of this. The successful husband, the perfect wedding, the happy ending. It should have been me." Before I could respond, she straightened up and spoke in her normal voice, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I love you so much, little sister. I'm so happy for you." She hugged me tight, and to everyone watching, it looked like a beautiful moment between sisters. But I was frozen. The woman who was supposed to love me most, protect me most, had just tried to destroy the happiest moment of my life. I spent the rest of my wedding reception in a fog, going through the motions while her words echoed in my head. David kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying I was fine, but inside I was shattered. That night, in our hotel room, I finally broke down and told David what Victoria had said. He was furious in a way I'd never seen him before. "Amelia, that's not sisterly rivalry. That's emotional abuse," he said, holding me while I cried. "You can't let her poison the most important day of our lives." "But what if she's right?" I whispered. "What if I don't deserve this happiness?" David pulled back to look at me, his hands on my face. "Listen to me. You are the smartest, kindest, most hardworking person I know. You've earned every good thing in your life. Your sister's jealousy doesn't change that. But the damage was done." Victoria's words had found their target, hitting every insecurity I'd carried since childhood. For weeks after the wedding, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living someone else's life, that eventually everyone would realize I wasn't good enough for the happiness I'd found. David and I launched Elevate Creative 3 months after our wedding, but I was operating under a cloud of self-doubt that I couldn't seem to shake. Every client meeting, every proposal, every success felt temporary and undeserved. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, for everyone to see what Victoria saw, that I was just the mediocre middle sister who'd gotten lucky. The irony was that Elevate Creative took off faster than we'd ever imagined. My combination of strategic thinking and genuine care for our clients' success created a reputation that spread through Phoenix's business community like wildfire. Within 6 months, we had a waiting list. Within a year, we'd hired our first 2 employees. Within 2 years, we were featured in Phoenix Business Journal as one of the city's fastest-growing marketing agencies. But success didn't silence Victoria's voice in my head. Every achievement felt hollow because part of me still believed I didn't deserve it. I worked harder than necessary, said yes to every opportunity, and pushed myself to exhaustion trying to prove that I belonged in the life I was building. Meanwhile, Victoria's life was spiraling in the opposite direction. The upscale salon where she'd worked closed down when the owner embezzled money and fled town. She bounced between several smaller salons, never quite finding her footing. Her relationships continued to follow the same pattern, intense beginnings that burned out quickly when men realized that her beauty came with significant drama. My parents, still blind to Victoria's flaws, kept bailing her out financially. Rent money, car payments, credit card debt, they covered it all while making excuses about the challenging economy and the beauty industry being so competitive. When I suggested that maybe Victoria needed to take responsibility for her own choices, my mother's response was swift and sharp. "Victoria is struggling right now, Amelia. She needs our support, not judgment. You have your successful business and your stable marriage. Not everyone is as lucky as you." Lucky. That word again, as if everything I'd built was just random good fortune rather than years of hard work and sacrifice. That's when Victoria called asking for a job. We met at a Starbucks near my office. Victoria looked different, tired, less polished than usual. Her hair showed gray roots, and her designer clothes had been replaced with more practical outfits. "I need a job, and I was hoping you might have something available at your company," she said after ordering basic coffee instead of her usual elaborate drink. "You want to work at Elevate Creative? I know it might seem weird, but my career in beauty isn't going anywhere. The industry is changing, everything's about social media now, and I'm not keeping up. But I have skills in customer service. I could learn the marketing side." The audacity was breathtaking. Not once did she acknowledge what she'd said at my wedding. Not once did she apologize for years of undermining my confidence. She was asking me for help while pretending our problems were just normal sibling rivalry. Despite everyone's warnings, I decided to give Victoria a chance. I offered her a part-time administrative position with a probationary period. She would answer phones, handle basic client communications, and help with filing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a job with potential to grow if she proved herself. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. She was punctual, polite, and seemed genuinely grateful for the opportunity. But by the second week, the cracks started showing. I overheard her on the phone with a client. "Oh yes, Amelia is my younger sister. I actually taught her everything she knows about customer service. I've been in client relations much longer than she has." My stomach dropped. She was taking credit for my skills and experience, positioning herself as the mentor rather than the employee I was trying to help. During team meetings, Victoria would interrupt my presentations with corrections or additions that were often wrong but delivered with such confidence that newer employees started looking confused about who was actually in charge. When I pulled her aside to address it, she acted shocked and hurt. "I was just trying to be helpful," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I thought you wanted me to contribute ideas." But the behavior continued. She started telling clients that she had years of marketing experience, embellishing her background to sound more impressive. She made unauthorized promises about timelines and deliverables that put our team in impossible positions. The breaking point came 6 weeks into her employment. One of our biggest clients called to complain about their account management. Victoria had apparently told them that their marketing strategy was too conservative and that she could design something much more impactful if they gave her authority to override my recommendations. She said she's been working in marketing longer than you have and that she's seen strategies like yours fail before, the client told me during an emergency phone call. "We're confused about who's actually managing our account." I spent 3 hours on damage control, apologizing profusely and reassuring the client that I was personally overseeing their account. They agreed to stay with us, but the trust had been damaged. That afternoon, I called Victoria into my office. Victoria, you told a client that you have more experience than I do and that my marketing strategy was going to fail. I didn't say it would fail, exactly. I just suggested some improvements. You don't have marketing experience, Victoria. You've been here 6 weeks in an administrative role. You have no authority to override my strategies. For the first time since she'd started working for me, Victoria's mask slipped. Her hurt expression turned cold and calculating. Maybe the problem isn't that I overstepped. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle having someone around who might actually be better at this than you are. The old Amelia would have crumbled at those words, would have started doubting herself and apologizing. But 3 years of building a successful business had changed me. I'd learned to trust my expertise and my instincts. Victoria, you're fired. The words came out calmly and clearly, and I felt a strange sense of relief as I said them. You can't fire me, she said, her voice rising. I'm your sister. You're also my employee, and you violated the trust one placed in you. This is a business, not a family favor. Please clean out your desk. Victoria stared at me for a long moment, cycling through emotions, shock, anger, calculation. Finally, she landed on manipulation. Amelia, please. I need this job. I'm about to be evicted. Mom and Dad can't help anymore. I have nowhere else to go. The tears started flowing, and her voice broke with what sounded like genuine desperation. For a moment, I wavered. This was my sister, the person who'd shared a bedroom with me for 12 years, who'd taught me how to braid my hair and sneak snacks from the kitchen after bedtime. Despite everything, part of me still loved her and wanted to protect her. But then I remembered her whisper at my wedding, "You don't deserve happiness." I remembered years of being told I wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, successful enough. I remembered the client call I'd just finished, cleaning up the mess she'd created with her lies. I'm sorry you're in a difficult situation, I said, and I meant it. But I can't sacrifice my business to enable your behavior. This decision is final. Victoria's tears stopped as quickly as they'd started. Fine, she said, her voice turning ice cold. But don't think this is over. You may have gotten lucky with this little company, but luck runs out. And when it does, don't come crying to me for help. She grabbed her purse and stormed out. I watched through my office window as she argued with our receptionist, demanding to speak to me again. When security eventually escorted her from the building, she was screaming about family loyalty and how I'd betrayed my own blood. The aftermath was immediate and predictable. My parents called within hours, furious that I'd humiliated Victoria by firing her. She's family, Amelia, my mother said, her voice shaking with anger. How could you treat your own sister like a stranger? She lied to clients and undermined my authority, I explained. She was damaging the business. So you choose money over family? The accusation stung because it was so unfair. I'd given Victoria multiple chances, ignored my team's concerns, and compromised my professional standards to try to help her. But in my family's narrative, I was always the villain when I refused to enable Victoria's behavior. The next few months were difficult. My parents stopped speaking to me entirely, and Victoria launched a social media campaign painting herself as the victim of a cruel sister who'd fired her out of jealousy. She posted long, emotional statuses about family betrayal and how success had changed me. But something interesting happened at the same time. My business continued to thrive. Without Victoria's chaos and manipulation, my team functioned more smoothly than ever. We landed several major contracts and I was invited to speak at a national marketing conference in Denver. Most importantly, I felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying the weight of Victoria's approval or disapproval. I wasn't second-guessing my decisions based on her potential reactions. I was just Amelia, successful, confident, and finally at peace with my own worth. 6 months after firing Victoria, I got an unexpected phone call from my mother. She sounded different, smaller, somehow. "Amelia, I need to talk to you," she said. "Could you come to the restaurant tonight after we close?" I arrived at Corazone's kitchen at 9 p.m. to find my parents sitting in one of the back booths, looking older than I remembered. The restaurant showed signs of struggle, worn furniture, outdated decor, and an emptiness that suggested fewer customers. "We need to tell you something about Victoria," my mother said quietly. "And we need to apologize." "Victoria has been arrested," my father said. "She was caught stealing from the salon where she was working. Cash from the register and products from inventory. They think it had been going on for months." I felt a complicated mix of emotions, sadness for my sister, vindication for my decision to fire her, and grief for the family relationships that had been destroyed by years of enabling her behavior. "We've been thinking a lot about what happened at your company," my father continued. "At first, we were angry with you. But after this arrest, after talking to her landlord and finding out about the debts she never told us about, we realized that maybe you weren't the problem." My mother started crying. "We'd been enabling her for so long, making excuses for her behavior, that we couldn't see what she was really doing. We blamed you for not helping her, but you were the only one who was actually trying to help her by setting boundaries." The conversation that followed was the most honest we'd ever had as a family. My parents acknowledged years of favoritism, of expecting me to sacrifice my own needs to support Victoria, of taking my stability for granted while pouring resources into her chaos. "Your business, your marriage, the life you built, you did all of that despite us, not because of us," my mother said. "I'm so sorry it took us this long to see it. It was healing in a way I hadn't expected. Not because it erased years of hurt, but because it validated my reality and my choices." Today, Elevate Creative employs 23 people and has been recognized as one of Arizona's fastest-growing women-owned businesses. I've spoken at conferences across the country about entrepreneurship and building authentic business relationships. David and I are expecting our first child, and I finally feel worthy of the happiness we've built together. Victoria was released from jail 8 months ago. She's living in a halfway house and working at a grocery store while completing community service. She hasn't contacted me directly since her arrest, which is probably for the best. Sometimes I think about that whisper at my wedding, "You don't deserve happiness." For years, those words had power over me because part of me believed them. But building Elevate Creative, learning to set boundaries, and finally understanding my own worth taught me the truth. I deserve every bit of happiness I've fought to create. To any woman listening to this who has a Victoria in her life, whether it's a sister, a parent, a friend, or a partner, please know that you don't have to sacrifice your own well-being to prove your love. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. Your success isn't diminished by someone else's jealousy. Your happiness isn't something you have to earn or apologize for. You deserve every good thing you've worked for and every dream you're brave enough to chase. Don't let anyone, not even family, convince you otherwise.